Hello, my name is Sam Robinson, and I'm owner of the UtahGunExchange.com. And I'm here today to meet with Kim Coleman, who is a current representative from West Jordan, Utah. And she is running on the Republican side of the ticket for the 4th Congressional District in this upcoming primary. It's going to be 1 week from today. We're going to play 20 questions. These 20 questions have been pre-written, and they are designed to cut through the platitudinal answers that candidates often give in regard to their support to the Second Amendment, or support of the Second Amendment. And Kim has invited us here today to have a good time and answer these questions. We appreciate you joining us. How are you today, Kim?
Great. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
All right. Well, let's get started. Would you please tell me your understanding of the purpose of the Second Amendment?
Second Amendment, it's been said that the Second Amendment is there to protect all the other laws and your other rights. And that's what I believe. I mean, it's right there, number 2, next to, I think, some of the most important rights that are found in our First Amendment: speech, religion, assembly, association, and to have that Second Amendment just bump right up against that is there to help guard and protect those rights and the others that follow. Sort of the underpinning of the whole Constitution. So,
I agree. Excellent. Okay. Do you believe the Second Amendment acknowledges an American citizen's right, or an individual American citizen's right, to keep and bear arms?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we talk about the reference to the militia, but absolutely the understanding is that is an individual right.
Okay. What have you done to defend the Second Amendment?
Oh, gosh. So I've been serving in the Utah House of Representatives for the last 6 years, where I have voted against red flag laws. I voted against universal background checks. I've voted against expanding gun-free zones. I've voted against really any effort to restrict your Second Amendment rights. But on the other side of that, I voted for extending concealed carry rights. So that goes all the way to 18 now. I used to be 21, but that idea was actually hatched at my dinner table with my daughter, who was in college, saying, how come this is a period of my life when I'm told that I'm at some risk and of being attacked, and it's the time of my life. I'm an adult and I can't carry. So I voted in favor of that. I think some of my favorite bills were Corey Malloy's bills that really emphasized. He had a resolution emphasizing what great laws we already have to protect people against crimes while honoring the Second Amendment rights. What else? Extending or the ability to conceal carry using a court order, a protective order, as sort of as the application. I mean, that would trigger your ability to conceal carry if you've got that act before the court. What else? A lot. I mean, so I have voted both on the side of expanding and protecting your Second Amendment rights. I voted against efforts to restrict them.
Okay, and how long have you been a representative of West Jordan?
6 years.
Okay. All right. What will you do, or what do you plan on doing, to defend the Second Amendment in the future?
Same things. I mean, I think you take that to Congress, that expanding the rights, ensuring your rights under the Second Amendment, and pushing back against any efforts to restrict them. So we have to be hyper vigilant at every level of government, which brings up the fact that we've looked at in my county. Our Salt Lake County government has tried to restrict lawful carrying on government property. That is against our state law. One of Corey Malloy's bills that I liked was to make it very clear that political subdivisions of the state cannot have stricter laws than the state allows. That was such a great bill. That didn't pass, but I hope he brings that back. So same thing, looking at the federal law, that any efforts to restrict Second Amendment rights, we push back, we stop, I say no. Same as I did in the state.
Okay.
So
So, do you support gun-free zones in either a private or a public area?
So some public areas make sense. I think jails, of course, things like courthouses. But no, I mean, I walk the halls of a Capitol. I sit in a fishbowl of a Capitol building in the House of Representatives. That's a public building. And we're free to carry on that Capitol complex. I've been on the side of making sure and helping students have a clear understanding that they can carry on campus too, and that's something that they try to kind of keep under radar and even try to represent that that's not allowed in the state when it is. That's been adjudicated, and so those are some of the things I think. Absolutely, private property. That's another right that you have. So I don't think the government should come in and tell you that you can't have weapons on your private property, and the public property should be extremely limited.
Okay, pretty clear. Will you ever support any bans or limitations on any particular type of firearms?
No. And I've kind of sort of stressed my imagination on that, and I think I can't imagine the scenario at this time where I would support a ban.
Okay. Will you ever support any bans or limitations on firearm accessories, including bump-fire stocks, performance-enhancing triggers, or trigger replacements?
No. And part of the problem with that is, as you know, even as we've discussed in my home and among friends, is once you go down that road, that is a real kind of slippery slope argument you can have. Where do you stop? So leave my guns alone.
All right. Be glad to. Okay. Will you ever support raising the age to purchase a firearm?
No, as I just mentioned, I supported even having concealed carry permits down to 18. So
The provisional carry. Yeah.
I don't love the provisional carry either. It needs to be a full-fledged license.
Yeah. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, I think this like I said, this idea was hatched at our dinner table with my college-age daughter, and so I think that's where Representative Lisenby, she was the sponsor of the bill. I think she's tried to get the full-fledged license down to 18. It hasn't passed yet, but I think that's worthy of continuing. But it's a lawful carry, so why have a provisional? What's the purpose of saying it's not a standard license? I haven't heard a good argument for why that should be.
Okay. What would you like to do about that?
Well, again,
I
supporting the efforts to make it a standard. One of the problems too, this is just an administrative issue, but one of the things we've learned is the provisional carry. If someone were to get that between the ages of 18 and 20, have to pay a full fee, but then they will turn 21, have to submit for the new license or for the standard license, I should say. And pay that full fee all over again. So really they're getting feed more, they're being charged more to have that provisional license, and then sometimes to have that lag between the two licenses can leave you without the ability to carry concealed. So I hope that Carrie Ann Lisenby keeps that going until it passes.
All right. Okay, here's a big one. Will you ever support universal background checks?
No.
Do you want to expand on that?
Again, it's these are lawful exchanges. These are lawful possessions, lawful acquisitions. I still haven't heard a good, solid rationale for why they should occur. So. Okay,
pretty simple. Will you ever support any legislation that eliminates private transfer of firearms without a background check?
Will I support legislation that eliminates it?
Yes, without a background check.
So, no, again, I don't think that a background check is necessary. So I know that people who do sell and exchange arms, even between family members, between friends. I mean, these are lawful transactions, should remain lawful transactions between law-abiding citizens. So why background check? So the laws forbidding possession and sell, those are already on the books. We don't need to go there. It's unnecessary.
All right. Will you ever support any legislation that supports gun registration?
No.
That's a big one as well. Do you want to expand on that?
I think anecdotally, can I just share a story?
Please.
So one of our favorite family films is, and we have to rewatch this every once in a while, is Red Dawn. And if you recall,
How many times have you guys seen that?
not enough.
Wow.
And
Great answer.
But you may recall that the kids head to the mountains while their city's being taken over, and then when
Calumet, Colorado.
right, so
Right.
and then they go back into town and they find out one of the kids' parents have been killed, and the reason why was because guns were missing. And we see frequently before bad stuff happens with bad governments is arms are removed, confiscated. Government doesn't need to know what I have in my safe at home, under my bed, wherever I keep it. They don't need to know. That's my business. And I don't want should things turn the way of Red Dawn. It's just not the government's business.
Understood and agreed. Okay.
Wolverines.
Awesome. Will you ever support any legislation that supports a background check with a tie-in to medical records?
Oh, no. Can we say hell? No?
I think so.
Okay.
It's your show.
Okay.
I'm the guest, but yes.
So hell no.
Okay.
Okay.
If that works for your censors, I think we're good.
This
I
is
think
a
you
family
need to expand
interview.
on that. All right. Okay. Do you support?
There's all kinds of problems with that.
Yeah.
All kinds of problems with that. I mean, that just conflates another very sensitive area of law and privacy and individual rights. So.
Agreed. Excellent. Okay. Do you support concealed firearm permit limitations or expansion?
Well, like I said, I've supported expansion already. I don't support limitations. So twice in the Utah House, well, I think more than twice in the Utah House, I've been able to vote for expanding concealed carry. Again, to lower the age, again, to allow protective order to serve as a permit to conceal carry, and then Carrie Ann's efforts to have that standard license.
Okay.
So.
Is it safe to say that you support national reciprocity?
Absolutely. But you know what? I support national reciprocity for a lot of things. So
Okay.
like occupational licensing, things like that. So, if you have the right to do something in one state, it's hard to justify that you can't do that lawfully in another state. So your Second Amendment is just part of a bigger picture to me. That reciprocity makes a whole lot of sense as we are American citizens and crossing state borders and freely moving about our country. Those rights should travel with us.
I hear you. Okay. Do you support the right for people without a permit to openly carry firearms, to keep and bear arms in public?
Yes.
Okay. Pretty simple.
You want me to elaborate?
Would you like to?
No, there's no elaboration on that. That's just
That
a full
simple?
stop. Yes,
Okay.
full stop.
Yeah, it has more impact that way. All right. Do you think, or should a private business be liable for injury or death to a patron if it bans firearms on its presence or it's on its premises?
So this is one probably I struggle with. We've had that legislation, hasn't gone all the way through in the House, because this is one where I think this is one of the harder things is when one of your rights hits up against another set of rights. So property rights. is also very important. And sometimes the argument is, yeah, but my right to carry carry arms to defend my life. My life is more important than your property. But really, our founders viewed a set of natural rights and a set of civil rights as all very, very important. So I would look at, I have, if someone doesn't want me to carry on their personal property, their private property, frankly, I might just carry, and if I'm concealed, they don't know anyway. But I might choose not to go to their business, go on their property. But this one really is kind of a little bit trickier. I just because it really is where two very, very important fundamental rights collide. I don't really know where I am on that. I just feel like I have the right. I do feel like I have the right to be safe wherever I go, even on your property.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to respect your right to what you want with your property. So I believe I voted for it. Just I think if I were to tip the scales, I think it could be argued that my life is more important. But our founders really viewed property also as fundamental.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay. Would you ever support a waiting period in order to purchase a firearm?
No. Again, not necessary.
Yeah. All right.
If it's lawful for me to possess and purchase, it's lawful for me to possess. I don't need to wait.
Okay. Here's a big one. Would you ever support legislation that allows a firearm to be taken from a person not convicted of a crime and without due process of law? And would you work to fix statutes that allow for that now?
Okay, so that one fits also in a more generalized area that I don't think the government should take any of your property without due process of law, period.
Mm-hmm.
Guns are just another piece of property that should not be taken. So, yeah, the answer is no. Simple answer is no.
All right.
The big answer is the government shouldn't take any of your property without due process of law. And I've actually voted on the side of supporting some civil asset forfeiture reform, things like that, which can allow government to take your property without due process.
Right.
So doesn't matter what it is.
Do you want to elaborate on whether you do anything in the future to fix statutes that currently allow for these things to happen?
Well, specific to Second Amendment, yeah, if having the opportunity to roll back any congressional legislation that does that, I would look for those opportunities. Resisting and voting against any further legislation in that area. But like I said, I've been pretty active in supporting reforms to the government's ability to taking any of your property without due process of law or without being charged with a crime. So.
All right. Okay. People want to know, does Kim own firearms?
I do.
Okay. And do you shoot? And if so, how often? Where do you like to go?
So not enough.
I think that's everyone's answer.
And where do I go? I go wherever Connie Peterson takes me lately. And it's usually something like, you need to get out of the campaign office and go shoot something.
Nice.
And about that time is she's probably right. And so
ballistic therapy.
We'll go shoot something.
Does it work?
Yes, so I have some targets over there.
Oh, that's what those were.
Some of my targets.
Okay.
So I have a gun at my home right now that I don't know what it is.
Oh, really?
So like I know people can name cars, makes, and models and guns and stuff, but all I know is my pawpaw gave it to me.
Wow.
And he's my Cajun pawpaw from Louisiana, and he says, "This gun been the death of many a varmint." It's your mama's scattergun. We call this a scattergun. So couldn't tell you what it really is, but
Scattergun.
it's a scattergun.
It's a varmint scattergun.
And the consequences of that has sometimes been dinner.
Oh, wow.
So, Louisiana.
Have you ever had buckshot stuck in your teeth? Or bird shot?
No,
Game shot?
no.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
You don't want too much or any lead in the diet, really. So, okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover that I didn't ask in these questions?
Let me ask you, why do you feel it's important to ask these questions?
I think it's incredibly important to ask these types of questions because quite often political candidates will say they support the Second Amendment when they don't. They'll say that they believe that it's a fundamental right and should be recognized as such, and their voting record shows something entirely different. So these questions are designed to ask about the specific issues that are likely going to come up. They're hot topics of the day. They're likely to be there in the future. And I like to get people on record in advance so that we know how individual candidates say they're going to vote, say how they feel about this and what they plan to do in the future, so that there's some accountability if someone votes. I think you have a slogan. You were just telling me about it. And it relates to this. It's good to know where people are before they go there. And if they choose to deviate, there needs to be a really good reason and where they need to be held accountable for doing so. And I feel the Second Amendment is the keystone right. And it's a right that exists whether or not we have a constitution. It's an inalienable right. It's a natural right. The right to self-defense, the right to own property, the right to communicate, the right to interact with others and gather together. These are natural rights. And they are enumerated in the First and Second Amendments. But you can't maintain those rights if you don't have the ability to defend them.
Right.
And for that reason, and all of the reasons that follow it, for the true reason behind the Second Amendment, I think it's important to know where people stand specifically on these types of issues. We could have went 40 or 60 questions, but I think the top 20 here that we ask and that we're asking candidates, so it's fair, and we allow people the opportunity to hear the answers from the individual candidates so they can make a decision is incredibly important. A lot of the time people say they're for the Second Amendment, and then we find out otherwise. I can't think of any time where somebody said they were against the Second Amendment and then magically voted for it or stood in defense of it. But I can think of many examples from the time I was a young child where people said they stood for it and then they trampled all over it. And it's amazing that it is the most clear of all amendments. Shall not be infringed. It is so clear. If somebody simply looks up those words and understands what they mean, that we can see that there is constant violation of the Second Amendment. So that's why.
So,
Do you want the long answer? No?
well, no, that's great. Because you're taking the time to ask these questions because of that, because of what you said, because you hear it. Every Republican candidate runs on being pro Second Amendment. And I'm in a primary race right now. There are 4 of us. And we all get a strong NRA rating because we all answered a bunch of questions the right way to get that. Actually, one of them didn't. so let me correct that. But 3 of us have a good rating from the NRA. But the NRA endorsed my campaign because I have a record. And so anybody who cares about the Second Amendment right can go and look at the patterns of my voting, the patterns of my behavior, which tend to not change when I've got 6 years of defending our Second Amendment right, promoting our Second Amendment rights. And, right now you have the opportunity really to vote for somebody and just hope that they're going to uphold these rights, just hope. And too often we've been disappointed, like you say. How many people say they're going to defend the Second Amendment and then they don't? Sometimes sometimes there are circumstances, there are events that can be hard to hold that line on Second Amendment rights. But having a firm understanding of why they exist and why we always have to be vigilant in protecting them. With me, you don't have to vote and hope. I mean, you can vote and know because you can know. You can. This is my voting record. This is what I've glanced at. 3 pages of good voting record. So I've done it. And so this year in this primary on June 30th, you can vote and know for sure you get a strong Second Amendment proponent. So thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks
That
for
is
having me.
important.
Speaking of voting, I know there are a lot of people who say that their vote doesn't count. And other people are single issue voters. So you have everything in between there. And the Second Amendment being one of the biggest single issue vote issues of all. What would you say to the people who think their vote doesn't count and they're not going to mail in their ballot? They're already registered, they received the ballot. What would you say to those people about the importance of voting in this and every election?
Gosh, that it does. I mean, every vote does count. And again, there are 4 primary candidates in this race. So it could be a close race. I mean, who knows? We do know that there are Democrats who have been encouraged to register Republican to vote in our race. That tends to be the party. If you look at the bills and the people who sponsor most of the restrictions on Second Amendment, that tends to come out of the Democratic Party. The protections tend to come out of the Republican Party. So knowing that we have Democrats trying to vote Republican this year, they're probably not going to like me because I am a stalwart defender of the Second Amendment. So if you care about the Second Amendment, go cast your vote for me. And I'm going to need every vote. I don't know where it is. We'll find out Tuesday. But absolutely have your vote counted. So.
Do you want to explain what the strategy is of Democrats registering as Republicans to then vote in a primary?
Well, it's just that we have some seats in Utah that are predominantly Republicans. So there's this feeling that if they re-register as a Republican, then they at least can try to pick who they like better. It's probably just not going to be me. I stand for too much that the Democratic Party disagrees with, including our Second Amendment rights. So that means not only do we need your vote, but we need you to get your friends out to vote. Make sure every Republican you know shows up to vote between now. It's vote by mail, so between now and June 30th, so that your Second Amendment rights will be protected and advocated for in a candidate like me and taking that to Congress. So.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Kim. I
You bet.
appreciate it very much. And I hope everyone gets out there and votes, has already registered to vote, but votes if you are ready to do so. And I hope this information has helped you to become more informed so that you can make a better choice as you do vote on this primary election heading into the fall.
So how do people find out stuff about your organization? You sponsored the Gun Saves Lives rally.
Yeah, created and sponsored the Gun Saves Lives rally up at the Capitol.
Which, by the way, none of my opponents were there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. That was an interesting event, really, because there are a lot of people who told me they didn't want to be a part of it. Said, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't think it's going to turn out well, and I don't want to have my name associated with it. Wow. And then it turned out to be this incredible event.
Yes,
incredible.
A great event.
With amazing optics and messaging, and it was really quite successful. And a lot of people then wanted to say that they were a part of it or they were there. It was pretty interesting to see how that worked out. But there's going to be another one, and we're going to keep building them bigger and better. And I can't wait for the Capitol to put in a better parking lot so that people don't have to brave walking, uphill in the ice for 45 minutes just to get into the Capitol.
Yeah.
It was amazing to see the turnout we had, and I'm grateful for everyone who was there. We're going to make sure that people have a much longer notice in advance next time, because everything kind of came together fast. As you're trying to plan those things, I was working with Clark Aposhian and Kieran Lisenby and Corey Malloy to try and pull these things together, get the timing just right. which is kind of like trying to build an airplane in flight. But next year, I'm going to extend the timeline a little bit longer. But if people want to know more about this interview, other interviews that we're doing to help voters become more informed, and legislative action that we're taking, you go to utahgunexchange.com. That's utahgunexchange.com, and click on a main banner that will reference this video and others like it. You can also click on the link that is titled To a Sanctuary or People's Voice Platform.
Okay.
We want to amplify the voice of the people who don't have a microphone. And that's what we're trying to do.
Great. You can also find out more about me at kimforutah.com, and maybe we can post this record, my voting record. So once again, you really do have a choice this year in the primary. You can vote for somebody and hope they mean what they say, or you can vote for me and know for sure. I am your candidate. If you care about the Second Amendment rights, I'm your candidate. And I've proven it, and I've done it. So kimforutah.com. Find me at Facebook as well, Kim for Utah as well. So
Thank you,
thanks
Kim.
for joining me.
Awesome. All right.
It's a wrap.
Because if you ask pretty much any candidate running for any office, they're going to say they support the Second Amendment
Right.
when they don't. And they'll vote against it, and they'll do everything to undermine it, and they don't understand the meaning of infringed.
You're loud. You're loud. I think we're going to be all right.
All right.
How rude. You're loud. You're loud.
Wow.
Got to mute it.
We're being held by the Romulan
Don't know what that
death
is.
ship.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we're getting
Red alert,
beamed
shields up.
That's exactly what that was. You recognize that?
Yeah, Star Trek Voyager.
It really was.
Sweet. Could have
That
been
tells me a
anything.
lot.
Probably a Ben McAdams.
Tells
song.
me a lot about you now. Okay.
Actually, well, I don't want you believing I've ever watched Star Trek Voyager because I haven't.
Really?
I did watch a lot of Next Generation when I was
Okay,
growing
yeah,
up.
I'm a next gener.
Yeah, I thought that was
I'm a
pretty
next
cool.
gener.
I couldn't believe, I'm 46, and I couldn't believe that Fox had Married with Children and 21 Jump Street and Star Trek Next Generation on regular TV. I thought,
Yeah.
this is cooler than cable.
I have the
Anyway.
trading cards.
For Next Gen?
Next gen.
Wow.
That's
So-
super nerdy. I have the
That's
trade-
pretty cool, actually.
I have the
Are they in
trading
good
cards.
condition?
Yep. They're in
Right.
plastic.
Did it, oh, they're in the plastic.
Uh-huh.
So, one of the questions off the record, but it may make the B-roll, who knows? If you were to liken yourself unto a Star Trek Next Generation character, who would it be and why?
It would be probably Beverly Crusher. I don't know why.
Do a tricorder?
Well, mainly just today we were talking about how Will Crusher was the most pathetic Crusher on screen. And so I thought, well, but Beverly is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, she's okay.
She kept it all together behind the scenes.
That's right.
You can go further when you're not afraid to get injured and not get put back together. All right.
Okay.
Well, that's a solid answer.